So our today's topic is about design, validation, and prototyping. I'm a UX UI designer at Bank, and basically what I do is I do the UI design and UX. Also, we do a lot of user research and user interviews, user testing. Um, this is kind of part of my role. Today's agenda, we're gonna have a little bit introduction, and then we're gonna discuss about user interface design. Then I'm gonna speak to you about 10 usability heuristic that you should apply to your UI design. And then like a quick tutorial of how to design a login page. We will do this together. Now, I want you to understand that in the software development lifecycle, um, in the software development lifecycle, it starts with the planning phase, defining the requirements, design and prototyping. Then which is our main focus today. And after designing the prototype, we then start coding and do the software. After that, we start the testing phase, then deployment, and the launch of the product, then the maintenance of it. And this keeps going whenever we have a new feature. Now, I assume that you suppose actually pass these phases of planning and defining the requirements. And you are about to start the design and prototyping phase. Now, the outcome of this phase is going to be your user interface design and other technical aspects like the architecture, the platform, the programming, like the programming language that you plan to use, the security and the communication aspects. However, I only experience in the user interface design, and this I'm gonna help you to understand how you can deliver this item, the UI design. So you should not actually go to the software development phase without your UI design. You should always have it in hand before starting development, because it kind of will be like a reference that your developers will refer to while developing your product. Now, the user interface design, what does it mean and what does it mean? So the user interface design process, or the UI design process, is the process that designers use to build interfaces in software or computerized devices. They are focused on the look and the style of the UI. Now, designers aim to create interfaces which users find it easy to use and pleasing. Now, the UI design could come in different forms. It could be a graphical user interface, or, for example, a voice-controlled interfaces, which a voice-controlled interface is, for example, an example of how you interact with Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant. Now, to continue, UI design consider all the visuals, the interactive elements of the product interface, and this includes the buttons, the icons, the spacing, the typography, the colors, and the responsive design. Now, the goal of the UI design is to visually guide the user through the product interface. It's all about creating an intuitive experience that does not require the user to think too much. For example, if we have a blank page, this can't be called a user interface because it does not chill the user to do anything. Now, believe me, good UI design doesn't happen by accident. There is actually multiple layers of UI design and multiple lenses that a UI designer look through while creating a user interface. And the layers of UI design are the UI controls and the patterns and applying visual design principles and also templates. Now here we have an example of e-commerce website, and here is the user interface of a product page, right? And here we have a wireframe, which is a simplified representation of the UI. It's all about focusing on the structure and the layout rather than individuals like the pictures and so on. Now, to understand what is the UI controls. The UI controls are the menu bar, for example, the icons, the text input, the headings, the image, the checkboxes, the buttons, the body text. All of these are the UI controls that supports the user to do a certain function and action. All right, and these controls was selected for a specific reason, and UI design is concerned with the process and the rationale of choosing these controls. For example, if you have a list of options and you want the user to select multiple ones, then you are going to choose a checkbox rather than a radio button. So there is already like, you should always have a reason of why you are selecting the specific controls rather than the others. And here's an example of other UI controls. For example, we have toggles, buttons in different sizes, checkboxes, radio buttons, tabs, image, video, and so on. Now, let's discuss the second layer of UI design, which is the patterns. Now, here's again the wireframe that we have discussed before, and let's understand the patterns behind it. So at the top, we have the header, the banners, and here we have the image grid and thumbnails and the search and the call to action. Now, these patterns are actually a group of UI controls, and then that we have that really solve a particular problem. It is a reusable solution to a common problem across the app. So you always have your header in your application, different pages. You will always use that header across the app. You will not keep changing it. Now, I just covered 2 layers of the UI design process. And for example, the visual design principles, I will not be covering it, so we can have more time to the tutorial. Now, to start the second section from our session today is, I'm going to discuss with you 10 usability heuristic for UI design. And these are rules that you have to apply them. You have to make sure that you apply them to your product when you do your application, whether it's in mobile or web, regardless. And then, and unfortunately, today I see many apps in Bahrain really are not aware about these rules, and they miss to evaluate them. So rule number 1 is visibility of system status. Now, the UI should always keep users informed about what is going on through appropriate feedback within a reasonable amount of time. For example, the way we are doing it at ILA, then during the onboarding process, we show them this progress indicator. We show them how many steps that they have done before and what is remaining for them. And also when they submit the application, we show them the progress. And we show them the estimated time remaining to complete the onboarding process. And at this stage, we also tell them that you can actually close the application, and once we are done, we will inform you. Now, this behavior really helps the user to make an action. And for example, if they are in a hurry, they will decide to make it later. So this feedback really helps the user. I'm very sure that sometimes you were in an application that you keep clicking on the button and does not shows you any response. and this because that application are not are failing to deliver the visibility of system status and not showing you any feedback. The second rule is matching between system and the real world. The design should speak the user's language. It should use the words and phrases that the user are familiar with them. You should not, definitely you should not use any technical terms because your users might not be aware what does that mean. An example of this, when we did the Arabic launch, we had a focus group meeting then, and there was a term called biometric ID. And we asked, and the translation was the Mu'arraf al-biometric. Imagine that. And we asked the users, do you understand these terms or not? And they told us, no, I feel like it's very new and actually strange. I would prefer to maybe call it al-basma or something that is much easier to understand in Arabic. Now, having this conversation with our users really help us to make a better decision in selecting the appropriate terms. Also, we should follow read word convention, making information appear in a natural and logical order. Another example, in our app, we display for our users the card, which is really the same one as the physical card. So we are reflecting the same experience in the physical and the digital world. Rule number 3, which is user control and freedom. Now, users often perform actions by mistake. They need a clearly marked emergency exit to leave the unwanted action without having to go through an extended process. I'm sure sometimes you do things accidentally, for example, like deleting an important email. So you just, for example, in Gmail, you have the undo action. So you can quickly save yourself. Also, whenever you are working on an important project and you forgot to save and you hit close by accidentally, so the system will show you, are you sure that, for example, will show you, do you want to save your progress or not? Then hopefully you will click yes and you will save your work. So it also, so the system save you and give you like an emergency exit. Rule number 4, which is consistency and standards. Users should not have to wonder whether different words or situations or actions mean the same thing. You should always follow the platform and industry conventions. This means that you should always be consistent in your product, like in the terms that you are used or anything, like your patterns. An example of Microsoft Office. At the top, we have the Word, sorry, PowerPoint, and then the Word application. For example, the way that you customize the text in both applications is the same. So it is standard and consistent across their applications. And here's like an eternal example of how Microsoft are doing it. Another example could be, for example, whenever you, another example, we have like here the e-commerce websites. And all of them, and these are different websites, and all of them use the same pattern for the navigation utility. You always have the search box. You always have the account and the cart in the same structure. So whenever you are about to design your application, you should follow what others in the same industry are doing and follow their patterns, the way they structure things, because your users will expect the same experience when they they are viewing your application. Rule number 5, which is error prevention. Good error preventions are good error messages are important, but the best design will carefully prevent you in the first place from making it. For example, here's also an example from Gmail. So imagine that you are about to send an email to your friend, and you tell them that please find the attachment, and you forgot to attach the file that you want to send. So the Gmail will will show you a pop-up that it seems like you forgot to attach the document. Are you sure that you want to send it anyway? So here it's gonna will save you from making the error before sending it and making the action. Rule number 6, which is recognition rather than recall. Basically, what does that mean is that you should not ask your users to remember things. You should be the one who reminds them. So try always to minimize the user's memory load by making elements and actions and objects visible. Your user should not remember any information from an interface to another. An example here we have is the Amazon. So let's say that you have, so what they are doing that they show you your recently viewed items. So the next time that you are going to shop again from Amazon, you will see the list of options that you have already saw. So you can continue from the same point. You don't have to remember what you were doing the last time you visited their application, their website. And rule number 7, which is flexibility and efficiency of use. So your users have different skills, and some of them are experts, some of them they are not, and they are inexpert users. So shortcuts will be a great help for your expert users, and it will speed up the interaction for them when they interact with your products. And you see this a lot in different tools like Word, PowerPoint, and different design tools. Rule number 8, which is heuristic and minimalist design. Now, interfaces should not contain information which is irrelevant or rarely needed. Any extra unit of information in interface will compete with other relevant units in the interface. So always try to remove any unnecessary elements. And remember always, communicate, don't decorate. And here's an example from Google. Now, in their interface, in the main page, you only see the search and but. They don't display for you like a random illustration or something and let you or force you interact with. No, their main focus is only on the search input field, and this is the primary goal also for the user. They came here to Google just to search. Rule number 9, help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. So your error messages should be expressed in the plain language, and you should not have any error codes, and your error message should precisely indicate the problem and suggest a solution for your users. Now, in example, during the onboarding process, we ask the user to enter a PIN number. And once they are done, we tell them also repeat your PIN number. Now, if the PIN number, for example, does not match, we clearly show them that, as you can see, the red borderline, we clearly show them and tell them that the PIN number does not match, please try again. Rule number 10, which is help and documentation. It's actually best if the system itself does not need any additional explanation. However, sometimes your users might need extra information or to know more about your products. So a good example of this could be like our FAQ page on our website. If the users want to know more about the accounts and the other products, our FAQ page will help them to know more, and this it will also assist them to complete the action or complete the task. Now, first of all, I want you to understand why we do the prototyping in the first place. Prototyping really help us to explore new ideas. So you can sit together with your team and brainstorm, and this will help you to, let's say, ideate on good and bad designs and make you make the right decision. Also, prototyping really help you to discover problems. So once you, let's say, done from all of your design, and you will start kind of setting pieces next to each other, and this will help you to see like if you are missing an important piece of information from your design, your product design. So prototyping really helps you to identify these problems. Also, once you are done from prototyping, you might go and test your product with your users. So this also will help you to identify any usability issues, so you can solve them before you actually develop the product. Also, prototyping helps you to engage much in a better way with your stakeholders and end users. For example, prototyping is really helpful when you have a meeting with your business team or the management. You can clearly show them how the feature will work in a prototype, rather than show them like a bunch of screens and so on. Also, prototyping will help you to sell your idea. Maybe in your case, you want to sell your idea to an investor so they can invest in your application or in your idea. So what you can do is you can design a prototype and show it to them before going and doing the hard work and making like a functional application with coding and so on. And this will help them to visualize and have a better understanding of your idea. So it will be like a good selling. Now, the types of prototyping vary. We have low fidelity prototype, medium fidelity prototyping, and also high fidelity. Now, definitely, I won't recommend you to go to your investor with this low fidelity prototype. You will look bad. So always aim to deliver a high fidelity prototype if you can, whenever you can. But during the brainstorming phase, I will say yes, it's good to start with low fidelity prototype where you just want to organize your thoughts and imagine how the product will look like. Just like kind of structuring your ideas in a paper. Now, before we jump to our tutorial, I actually, before I made the login page, I take my notebook. It was an April notebook, and I have really very simple thing, nothing fancy, just my pencil and a ruler. And I just started planning how I want to design the login page and how I want it to look like. I see that we have a question. Yes, I will definitely send them to you because I actually added a lot of references that I wanted to look at, and it will really help you. So yeah, Fatma, I will send them to you. Now, just to start the tutorial, first of all, the tool that I'm using is called Figma. And the way that you can start a new design project is simply by clicking on a new and start design file. And it will directly pop up and open for you. Now I will create a new page just by pressing this plus icon, add a new page. So now I have my new page, and you see this region tools. Here we have frames. And once I click frame, I will see here in the left corner, sorry, on the right corner, I will have list for frames. For example, I can design for any phone device screen like Android, Google Pixel, iPhone 8, iPhone 8 Plus, anyone. So I will just select iPhone 11 Pro. And here now I have my interface, which is basically a layer. It's in the layer, and I will rename it, and I will call it login page. Login number 1. Okay. Now, usually, so let's go now. Can someone tell me what do we need in a login page? What kind of fields or input fields that the user have to enter to just to make the login page? What do we need? I can see text boxes to enter information, yeah. Text fields, username and password, that's right. Login, sign up, yeah, definitely. Username and password. All right, good. Buttons and lines. So all of you are actually right. So let's just start of how to make an input field. Simply, I will just select a rectangle here from our tools, a rectangle, and I will just draw the line and have it here. And I will just adjust the width for it and the height. And I will place it in the middle, align horizontal centers, yeah. Now it will be placed in the middle of my screen. Now just adjust the width and the height a bit, okay. Now here I have my input field, but I need to adjust the color for it. So I will make the filling, I will change the filling for it. I'm a designer, so I'm kind of very geek to know and remember the hex code. But in your case, we'll just select any random color that you feel that is best for you. Okay, and I will add a stroke for it. And I will select a different shade. And now I have my input field. Now this is just like the text box, but I also need a label for it. So I will select the text, and I will say, for example, email or username. That's totally fine. And maybe I will change the width, the thickness of the font. Now here, this is my label. Now I just want to adjust the spacing between these two elements, and I will make it 8. Now I will group them together so it can behave as one item. And now usually what do you see in a textbook that it has a placeholder. So I'm gonna add this placeholder to the rectangle. For example, it could be info at example.com. Oops. All right. And so definitely I will not keep it. So it is a placeholder. So I will change the color for it. Maybe it's too light. Yeah, this shade looks good. Now I have to actually have it under my group, and this will call it I will edit the naming in my layers. Now this is a placeholder, and this is my label, and it's kind of like my invert. Now here's my input field. Okay, let's call it input field. So now I will just adjust. Now here I'm clicking on Alt in the keyboard. Now I can see that the spacing are all adjusted. So you really need to make sure on your spacing and so on once you start designing. Now here's like the first input that we have just created. Now I will make a duplicate from it. I will just hit Control and D. And I will use the same thing. I will call it, for example, password. I will just change the placeholder for it. For example, minimum 8 characteristics. All right. Now, I will also adjust the spacing between the email and the password input fields, so the user will kind of have enough space to interact between the two different inputs. It's really very important to not close them too much next to each other. So far we just had our first two input fields. And as you have seen, it's just simply a rectangle and a text field that I have entered. I hope that nothing feels so difficult until now. Now, usually some users might forget their passwords. So I should always consider this case when people forgot their passwords. So I have show clearly how they can, for example, go through that process and where we will be able to send them a link. So I will just select again the text input field, the text. And I will just drag it here and I will say, do you forgot your password? All right, and then I will say auto width, and then maybe I will change the color for it and we'll have only blue one. Or usually links are associated in blue. So I think this will be like because I want the users to notice that they can actually change their if they do not remember their password, that they can actually notice this action. And maybe I will make it underlined. Usually when people see links, it's usually with an underline below the text. So this helps them to recognize the action, and that this is not just like any random text. No, it's actually clickable and I can make something with it. So I'll place it in the middle of the screen. So what else do we need to add? We have to add the button. So just like before, I will also draw a rectangle, and I will just adjust the width the same as I did for the input fields, and I'll make the height as 40. And I'll place it in the middle. Now, it's very important to keep all your elements in the same page, having the same layout. For example, it's not really nice to see something like this. This really will look bad. You feel like the design does not have any balance, or like it just feels like something messy, and you will actually not trust this brand. You will not, if you see something like this in a production and like a live application, you feel like you don't want to interact with it, and close it. Now, for the button, I will just select any random color that we have, and I will add a text for it, and I will say login. And I'll place it in the middle, and I will also group them together to make it be much easier. And I will call this one a button, and I will change, I'm playing in the layer part, and I will change the label name, and yeah, okay, fine. Now this is my button, the simple rectangle one. Maybe here I will change the width, the font width, so the user can actually notice the action. And maybe in this state, like because we did not enter anything yet, so it could be in act like disabled. So I will just play with the opacity of this layer, the button. I'll just make it like 50%. So now it seems like a disabled button. Also, for example, here in the login page, maybe I will add, for example, our logo. I will just search in our assets, and I will drag it and add it here. Just simply an image that we added, and just like we have a design library that we place all our assets inside from there. And I will adjust the size of it, and I'll click on this button because it will make it very scalable. Whenever I change the width, it also adjust the height for it. And I will also place it in the middle. So yeah, align horizontal. So also, I'm sure that you also have seen examples where users, for example, log in through Gmail or Facebook and so on. So this is also could be like a nice touch to add in the interface. For example, I will duplicate this button. The way that or maybe I will copy it. I'm just control and copy. Oops. Okay, control and copy, and then I will paste it again. Now here, what I'm gonna say is, for example, login with Google, and I'll place it in the middle. And what I'm gonna add is the Google icon. I will just copy any page that I find in the browser. So search for the Google icon, and I have it here actually. So I'm just gonna copy it. So it's an image. And copy it in here. So I will just adjust the size for it, and I will just copy it. Oops. And I will just now hold it and then copy it to my interface or my page. I see that we have okay. Okay, and I will just now just add this icon of the Google to my button. Now you see that it's kind of gets gray out, and this because the opacity was 50%, and I will adjust it to 100%. I'll just make this icon a little bit smaller, and yeah, and I will keep this in the middle. Now you can see that here we have. Imagine that this was actually enabled. Now we have two different action, two primary action, which is login with Google and our primary action, which is login. Two different buttons with the same style. Now, I don't want our users to keep focusing on logging with Google. So what I will do, I will change, I will remove the filling, the color, all right? And I will just add for it only as a normal stroke, just a normal borderline. And I will change the color of the text. Now, the reason why I did this is that because this is not a primary action that I want our users to keep interacting with it, and keep focusing on it. I want the main focus always on the primary action of this page, which is the login button. Now, users could log in it from Google, and they maybe they already have their own account, and they will log in with their email. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to draw a line. Okay, and I will make it here. The rotation will make it 0, so it would be like a straight line. All right, and I will also add a frame here. And I will fill it in white. So you can see that it's kind of cutting off from the middle. And I will also add another text layer. And I will say R. But I will make the text width as light or like regular. I will change the size of it as, for example, 12 or 14, depends. So this R is within my frame here. Now I will just change the color of this line. So the users could log in from Google, or they can simply enter their own email and password and make the login. Now, what else we could have? For example, some users might not have an account yet, so they will need to register. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add a new layer, a new text layer, and I will say you don't have an account yet. And all right, and I will make another text layer. I will say, example, sign up. Now I will just change the size of the text, because I want our users to notice this action and not to miss it if they don't have an account yet. Maybe 16, or let's say 24. Let's try this. And I will also make it in blue, and I will change the width for it, and also make a line, underline. Yeah, it's under. So what now what I was clicking is on these three dots, which is the type details, and you see all the decoration that you can assign, that you can apply to this text. I just made the underline option. I select the underline option under decoration. Now I will just group these together, and I would just adjust the spacing to 16, for example. Maybe here I want to make it as gray. Oops, it's too light for the user. And so yeah. Now this kind of pretty much we cover everything in the login page. Users can have two different options to the login. They can log in from Google, for example. They can use their own email, and here's the action to log in, and the sign up option. However, I'm gonna play more with the spacing of the elements in my page. Here I'm just gonna change the color to not to give it high attention. For example, the first thing that I want to do is I will ensure that the spacing is not very close to the top edge of the device for the logo. Maybe 16, or let's say 60, the spacing between these. I'm clicking on Add on the keyboard, and I will move this button a little bit down, and I will make it a little bit far by 46, and I will group these elements together so I can move them very easy. All right, just this one. Now, a very easy way to kind of group everything in the interfaces by, now Figma have this feature which is just we're gonna lay out and structure everything for you in equal spaces. And now I can, after clicking this option, now I can adjust the spacing from here, and I will say, for example, 32 between each element. And here for the forget password, I will also do the same. Now it's kind of a little bit organized, and the spacing seems fine. Maybe here will be 46 between the password and also make the same spacing between the slide section. Move this down. All right, and to kind of make it feel as a real let's say device screen, I'm gonna add like the iOS status icons bar, which is let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, I have it here in our assets. However, it's in white. No, it's not this one. I have different ones. This is for Android. Okay, now this one is for our iOS, so I'm gonna use it. However, it's in white, so I'm gonna change the color in black to make it more easier. Okay. Now this feels like a simple login page that you can actually create in your application. I'm not trying to design anything that seems very complex for you, because you are just into this. So I'm really just trying to make things that seems very simple and very easy to do. So I will just I will do another version, another state of this login page where we, for example, click on the keyboard. And I will just simply change the borderline for the email to represent the active state of the keyboard, and I will make it blue. طبعا the choosing of the colors I would say mainly depends on your brand guidelines, like your brand colors. Here, for example, in our case in ILA, we have the primary button in blue, in navy blue. This does not mean that you have to follow the same. No, you have your own branding color. However, make sure that your colors are not too bright or something. Make sure that they are clear enough and acceptable for your audience. As I said before, I have to make this login button and as disabled. So we'll rechange the opacity for it as 50%. Now, I will also, for example, try to enter something like Hawra at example.com. And I will change the color of the font. And I will just draw like a simple line to kind of really feel that this is kind of like a real keyboard and a real input field. Mm, I will adjust a bit my layers. Now, really naming your layers in appropriate way will help you very easy to find uh, like your elements and objects in the interface. Now here line 2, I have to make it to this one like my first layer. So now when I move them, they move together. Okay, just making them everything that close to each other. Now what do I need is my keyboard. So let's add it. I will just say keyboard, and I will drag it here. It's just simply like like an image actually, and you can, and these objects and these items, you can find them in the web easily. Just go and Google, for example, iOS UI kit or something. And I will try to give you more resources as much as I can in my slides, like to add more resources on how to find these elements. Now I have my keyboard. Now it really feels like a real screen and a real keyboard that you are interacting with it. طبعا you can do the same thing for the password. And now let's do a state for the screen when everything we have entered. I'll just delete the password, and for example here I will make it back to like here. I'm gonna represent the state where this input field is populated, meaning that I have already entered my input, or meaning the user have entered his input. Just delete this one. طبعا for the password it's kind of let's say hidden. It will draw circles, small circles. And I will make them in the same size. So I will just say the width is 8 and the height is also 8. And I will place them in the middle. All right. Now, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna frame this one. I'm gonna add to it a frame. All right. And there is a very nice feature in Figma, which is auto layout. So I'm gonna select auto layout, and what I'm gonna do, as you can see from the settings of the auto layout, is that, for example, let me do an example. So I'm gonna duplicate this first circle, right? So what you can see, the frame auto layout itself and adjust itself and expand. You can do, for example, a vertical direction where the layout goes vertically. And whenever I add a new item, it keeps adding, very easy. However, in my case, I want them to go in a horizontal direction. And just like I want to add on the edge, and I will adjust the spacing between each one of them to 8. And I will change the color to blue. Now this feels that the screen is almost ready, but let's change the state of this button to enable state, and I will just adjust the opacity for to 100%. Now, for example, what if the user had entered an error. What I'm gonna do, I will duplicate this one, and maybe the password is have less than 8 characteristics or something, or maybe they have entered an email in not an appropriate format. That is a good example for you here in the login page. We can say, for example, your email format, the format of your email. I'm thinking of something that it will make good. Looks good. Maybe, for example, and I will just adjust the oops is not valid, and I will make it closer to the email. However, I'm gonna change the color of it to red, and I will make it maybe a regular state, and I will change the border line of this input. Maybe the user might had missed to enter.com, for example. Please try again. And the button should be disabled. So it's kind of how to create a user interface. Now, I don't want to make too much time from you, and I have already made similar things before. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make the prototyping. I actually made also the login page, sorry, the sign up page, and I made the sequence in different stages where I added the keyboard and where, for example, the password is not entered yet, and when the password is up, or when the user is about to enter the password, and also, for example, the loading page, the loading state when the user hit login, and for example, when we have an error state, for example, the information that the user have entered are not valid for both, but we will not, for example, say if the password or the email specifically. And yeah, so what we're gonna do is that I'm gonna make the prototyping. And how does that work? So for example, so now at the design mode. Here, if you can see from the left banner, I'm gonna click on prototype mode. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna select my button, and I will link it to my next screen. No, first I'm gonna, sorry. So first I'm gonna start with the email. Now I'm gonna link it to my next screen. Is that the state where the user about to enter the email? So once the user tap, he should navigate to this page, which is login number 2. And now I don't want any kind of animation. So yeah. And you have like kind of different options for the interaction. User can tab, user can drag, user maybe when you are designing for a website, then the state will be hovering or pressing or something. Maybe it could be like mouse enter, mouse leave or something. Or maybe after delay. or maybe if not, then you are not making any interaction with this one. So what I'm going to select is on tab, and I want the user to navigate to this page. Here where it's going to list for you the list of pages that you have. So now the user will be at this screen, and what I want to do is that I want the user to be transferred to the next one once he's done from entering the email. And I will make the same settings. I will not change anything. And the same thing for the password. The user about to enter the password. And the same thing, I will keep doing it. I'll just link it. So what does Figma do is that they kind of save your settings if you want to change them or not. Like I want the same animation. I want the same the way that I want them to just to navigate. However, once they click on login, I want them to navigate to this page. However, now what I'm gonna do is it's just kind of like a transition to the next screen. So what I'm gonna do, I will not say on tab after delay. I want you to navigate to this screen immediately. And also the same thing that I'm gonna display like a toast message, and once for example the toast message is like happens in seconds, like it happens in 2 or 3 seconds, and then it's like hidden. I'm gonna do also the same thing, like after delay I want you to navigate to the next screen. And maybe here I want to adjust the timing, the transition of the time, and make it maybe 5 milliseconds. All right, now this is like the login flow. And for example, when the user wants to click on the sign up, I will just let them go to the screen, which is my sign up screen. I have already made them this before just to save the time. And whatever we have learned and what we have learned, you can apply it. And once the user click on the login, I want them to go back to my previous screen, which is the login page. Now, let's make it work. I will just hit play here, which is in the present mode. Okay. Now, let's start interacting with this interface. Now, if I hit on the keyboard now when I hit on the email input field, the keyboard pop-ups. Once I'm done, I can enter the password and so on, and I keep processing with the flow. Once I hit in the login, then I will see that it is kind of showing me that, oh, I have an error because maybe my password and my email are incorrect. Okay, and if you want, I can go back. Now I can also go to the sign up page. I just clicked on the sign up. I'm just gonna go back on the sign up. Now if I want to go to the login page, I will just click again on the login page. Now this kind of feels like it's kind of an actual functional application that you can do. And I will show you an example how you can make it actually play on your phone. So Figma have an application called Figma Mirror. So I'm just gonna play it. Figma Mirror. I'm not sure if you can see. Now what does the interface say is that I have to select a frame to make it work on my device. طبعا you should previously in advance you should create an account. Now I just select, now here on in my desktop I select my interface, and now I can see that it's currently playing on my device. You can see, and now I can actually interact with the prototype just like a real application. And this is like a prototyping, and you can present this to anyone and kind of discuss or maybe test it before going live or developing the whole product. So this kind of pretty much everything. So there is a lot of prototyping tools. We have Figma, Marvel, Adobe XD, Sketch, InVision, Pasamic, and I have tried almost all of them, but I'm gonna advise you to mainly focus on or try. I will advise you to actually to try the first three. I think they are great. For example, one of the important features that I believe the handoff tool, and for example, here we have like a different mode, which is the inspect. Now a developer, the developer, once you are done with your work, you can send these to your developers, and what they're gonna see all the coding, for example, styling, options, and all this stuff, and they can apply it, and they can apply them to their code. So they don't have kind of to guess what color you have made in your UI and something. No, they can exactly apply the same thing that you have designed in your developments.